Good morning. Please join me in lighting the chalice. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, the celebration of the life we share together.
Welcome, you whose journeys are always beginning. Welcome, you whose mission always awaits us. Welcome. Those visitors bent on loving, we gather together here. We gather as community drawn together out of a common need, each toting our own carpet bag of treasures and dreams. I love that language because we are indeed spiritual vagabonds trying to find a place where we can settle our soul and be encouraged and built up. So my name is Charlie Tyler. I'm the pastoral minister here at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Low Country. Those of you who are guests and visitors, we are honored to have you in our presence. Thank you for your attendance. Those of you who have been longtime members, you know why you're here and the strength that's in this place, and it brings you back over and over again. Those of you who are visiting for the first or second time, I'd love to ask if you'd be willing to stand where you are and just give us your name and tell us a little bit about where you're from, because more than likely somebody else in this room is from there too. So if there's any guests that would be willing to stand and introduce themselves, I'd appreciate it. Any first-time visitors? Yes, ma'am. Oh, Ann, yes.
Hey, I'm Ann Broley, and I'm visiting, I live in Hilton Head Island, all the way on the south end, over the bridge.
Welcome. Good to have you here. Are there others? So we gather here in this place to be able to acknowledge our own selves, our own hearts, and our own needs. One of the things, if I can take a few moments of personal privilege, first of all, I want to thank the congregation for your generosity, for your gifts to me specifically, and then also to each other. I saw the way in which we participated on Christmas Eve. Thank you for that. You do need to know that after the cookies and the candy that has come to me, that I am starting a GoFundMe to have my pants altered so that I can at least wear a third of them. Oh, and another point of personal privilege. Some of you know about the Snickers work that I do. Some of you have picked up on it. Those of you that don't know, a couple years ago I began the process, or just a treat, of buying a Snickers bar at the grocery store and give it to the cashier. It's produced all manner of responses, and some of you have picked up on it too. A couple weeks ago, Susan Crow gave me Snickers socks. Susan, if you had told me 10 years ago that I would be strutting around in your socks and this, I would not have believed you. So thank you for your kindness. Let's see. The Franks, where are you? Brian, you're in the back corner. So Brian and Nancy gave me 10 pounds of Snickers bars, Christmas Eve, and I took them to my grandchildren's house thinking somebody might eat them. My youngest daughter immediately scolded me for bringing all of that candy into the house. However, there is irony in this, and I need you to know this. My son-in-law, Sam, is a dentist. He's an he's an orthodontist. And he turned around and he said, "I'll take them." We give candy to our orthodontist patients when we finally take the metalwork off because they haven't been able to eat it for 18 months. And I'll make sure they get it. Irony noted, the candy went to the dentist and it was a treat. Thank you for that. Some of you were able to be here New Year's Eve and hear Beth Reinder's message. And Beth, thank you for your heart behind that. Where are you? Okay, there you are. Beth personally increased my vocabulary in a number of different ways, and I took delight in that. I also scolded her for doing a better job than the three ministers that are here could do, and that the gauntlet has been thrown down at us. And so, Beth, thank you for your work and for your time here and the skills that you bring to this place. The fire ceremony was a success. I had a chance to go back and listen to the whole of the service, Beth's message in the fire ceremony. And I understand that one of our members who's responsible for our safety, Steve Clark, was just a little bit squirrely. I'd heard that. I don't know if it's true or not. It was just a little bit sideways because Steve is a retired firefighter. And so we're down here setting fire to things. And you can sort of understand where he's coming from here. And at the end of it, as soon as it was finally extinguished, I can't prove it, but I heard this enormous sigh of relief that I think was coming from the back of the church. So that's just some of the things that I want to mention. Thank you for all the help and support that you've been given. There's a couple announcements, if I can. Kathy Zeiser, I know that you've asked, so if you would please.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Kathy Zeiser. I am co-chair of the Social Justice Committee along with Rosemary Staples. I started handing out some things today, little handouts, on the path to legislation for South Carolina. The legislation session opens this Tuesday, January 9th. There are a lot of issues. One of the major one is gender-affirming care. They want to ban that for anyone under the age of 18. Abortion, gun legislation, voting rights, so many things. So this guide is, I guess if we all had civics in high school, it's just a refresher. So use it. We'll be asking you to do some letter writing, some phone calling, taking action whenever we can. And I just thank you. So I have some more. I handed some out this morning. I have some more here. So you can see me if you'd like them. Thank you. Thank
I'm going to ask Clay to come up here in just a second, but I did want to acknowledge the service for Marge Lamke yesterday. Those of you, some of you, many of you, I think, streamed it, and it was a particularly meaningful time. The family was very appreciative of this congregation and who and what we have meant to Marge and to Jim in the years moving forward. I understand that Jim will be making a move here soon to the Northeast, and so we'll be missing his physical presence. He says he's going to be streaming in, but he also has already identified a couple of UU congregations up where he's going to be moving to, so that's a good thing. Clay, I know you have an announcement.
Good morning. Two announcements. One involves the foyer, and the other involves a private Facebook group we're trying to create. And on your chairs, you have an announcement about the private Facebook group that we're trying to form. And this will be an opportunity to, see church events, talk about personal concerns. For example, if I'm annoying you this morning about doing this announcement, at the end of the service, you can type in that thing. Barnard, don't do these announcements anymore. Anyway, it's a way to communicate internally more often. So take that paper that's right in front of you and pull out your phones. How many times in church do you hear that? Pull out your phone right now. Everyone, if you've got a phone, just take a phone out. Take a phone out. Let's see. This is really easy. I promise you, it's not a test. So, if you have the sheet in front of you, which I thought I had, here you go. See the UR code right there? Pretend you're taking a selfie, okay? And the selfie is this UR code. Just hover your phone over that UR code right now. Just hover it right over that right now. And what's going to appear on your phone is going to say, do you want to join this private group? You'll see it right on your phone. If you touch it, you've joined. That easy. End of that announcement. Thank you. And let me update you on what's happening with the foyer. We've raised approximately $16,000. Thank you very much. We're moving ahead. We have 2 vendors. Yay, thank you. We have 2 vendors. The Baffle group is out of Atlanta, and then we have a painter. So we're starting to line up. What we haven't done so far is pick the color. So this will be the hardest part, picking the color. But we hope to have this done within the next 2 or 3 months. So thank you for your group.
Are there any other announcements left unattended before we move on? It's my privilege to invite my good friend, Reverend Dr. Neal Jones, for the opening words. Reverend Jones.
Good morning on this beautiful day. May we find peace when our world is worn with war. May we find peace when our lives are ruled by fear. May we find peace when loneliness weighs heavy on our hearts. May we find peace when despair takes hold of our souls. May we find peace as we give help to those in need. May we find peace as we gather in this place of grace. May we find peace.
If you would please take your hymnals into your hands, turn with me, if you will, to hymn number 108. And may we stand together, if you're willing and able, and sing "My Life Flows On" in this song.
So this morning, through his sermon and also later at the talkback, Reverend Neal Jones is going to lead us perhaps to a deeper understanding of an ideology that has been building momentum in this country known as white Christian nationalism. And because our democracy is being threatened by this belief system, I thought that it might be a good idea today for us to revisit the poem by Amanda Gorman called "The Hill We Climb." And as you remember, as Joe Biden was being sworn in as the 46th President of the United States, Amanda Gorman, 22-year-old first American Youth Poet Laureate, stood on the steps of the Capitol and recited her poem, "The Hill We Climb." And since that time, many have said it was the highlight of the inauguration. Amanda Gorman began writing this poem in the weeks that followed the 2020 presidential election, and she finished writing it on the night of January 6th, 2021, after the violent mob stormed the Capitol that day in an attempt to overturn the results of that election. And that was 3 years ago yesterday. In her poem, She makes references to the struggles that we are facing in America today, and she raises up the messy concept of democracy. And as Unitarian Universalists, we hold the practice of democracy as sacred, and we will do everything we can to protect it. As you know, we now view our principles as values, so the words of our old fifth principle, familiar to many of you, are that we affirm and promote the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. And now, under the value of justice, what we say is we support the use of inclusive democratic processes to make decisions. What it comes down to is that Unitarian Universalists believe that every voice matters and every voice is needed, and that unrestrained access to the ballot is essential to ensure that every voice is heard. So for me, Amanda Gorman's poem, The Hill We Climb, feels like a hopeful vision for our deeply divided country. And I read it today because I hope that it feels like that for you. And for you kids, this is you kids over there in the corner, this is a poem really for your time. And it goes like this. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace. And the norms and notions of what just is isn't always justice. And yet the dawn is ours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge our union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. And so we lift our gaze, not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first, we must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so that we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true, that even as we grieved, we grew, that even as we hurt, we hoped, even as we tired, we tried, that we'll forever be tied together, victorious, not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. That is the promised glade, the hill we climb. If only we dare it, because being American is more than a pride that we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We have seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. And this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith, we trust. For while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption we feared at its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be, a country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens. And here's my favorite line. But one thing is certain, if we merge with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left. With every breath from our bronze-pounded chests, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise from the gold-limbed hills of the west. We will rise from the wind-swept northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states, and we will rise from the sun-baked south. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover. And every known nook of our nation, in every corner called our country, our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge, battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it, for there is always light, if we're only brave enough to see it, if we're only brave enough to be it. Wow. And at this time, the young people and I are going to leave to head to the Sunday school.
As a prelude to our offerings today for support of this church and for the Sandalwood Food Bank, I'd like to share a brief reading. You'll know it's brief because I got it on the one side of this one. So here we are. This is by Brandock Lovely. Let there be an offering to sustain and strengthen this place, which is sacred to so many of us. A community of memory and of hope, for we are now the keepers of the dream. Thank you for your generosity. And you too.
This is the time we share our joys and concerns. In this place, we share our good times and our hard times because we know that we are connected to the universe and to each other, and it's a comfort to be known. If you have something you'd like to share, come forward and tell us your name. Please, no announcements or political statements. Take a stone from the cairn. from the basket. I stand corrected. And tell us what you'd like to share, and then put the stone in the can. That seems right.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mike Nicholson, husband of the famed Betsy Morehouse. Betsy's had some terrible neck pain over the last few days, and she's taken to her bed with lots of heat compresses. She's doing a little better today, but I think she needed the day just to relax. She's appointed me to do some announcements for the care committee. Let's start with Kathy Quirk. Kathy is, her Betsy's sharing emails with Kathy and Erin, Kathy's daughter, so she's right up to date on what's going on. Kathy's now getting an infusion of a targeted drug for mutation and 2 chemo drugs, all in the same infusion. And she's getting that 1 time a week for 4 weeks, then bi-weekly for 2 more weeks. She's had radiation on the 5th, and she's getting radiation on the 8th and the 9th, followed by a scan at 8 weeks. But she's doing well. Her spirits are good. She's walking daily, and unfortunately the tumors affected her voice, so phone calls are just not working for her, but she would really appreciate the best ways to communicate with her via email, text, and cards sent to her sister's address. And if you're involved in that, you probably have her sister's address with you. She says our messages are keeping her spirits strong. And she says, please keep communicating with messages of care and hope. Now, some news about Mary Watson. Good news. She is getting far better. She can now drive short distances, but she won't be attending UU for a while, so that there's no risk of exposure to COVID. And that's the care committee report. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Tish Hans, and I have a joy. My husband, who many of you have never seen because 10 o'clock on Sunday mornings he's playing tennis, and he does that every morning at 10 o'clock, which is probably why he's in such great condition. He just turned 80, and I was lucky enough to manage to surprise him with my family coming down. And he had no idea that was going to happen, and they drove down, they spent an overnight, and then came as he was playing tennis and showed up. And it was great. It was just wonderful. And I'm so blessed to have such a great family and such a wonderful husband. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Diana. I have a great joy. My daughter's here. Yay. Jennifer, but she's not a Jenny. She's a Jen. So don't call her Jenny. She always makes that clear. I'm the only one I think that calls her Jennifer. But I'm thrilled about that. Her husband just left. They just got married last year, and she's my only child. And if you feel comfortable going up and saying hi to Jen, she's the one knitting over there. I didn't teach her how to knit. She taught herself. I taught her how to crochet, though. So I'm very happy. It's very joyful to have them here. I visited Mary Watson, you reminded me, and for a while. We sat together with her partner and her doggie, and she looked good, she sounded good, she showed me the stitches in her back, you know, she showed me the x-rays of the hardware that they put in her back. Whoa. She wasn't in any pain when I spoke with her. she really was in good spirits. So I was really happy about that. So those are two joys.
Good morning, Susan Crow. I have a joy that occurred during our service. It's always a joy to be in this space and to see your faces out here and to hear the profound words from Charlie and Neal and Ann. But it was really enhanced this morning by the red-shouldered hawk that was sitting on the branch right there, literally looking in our window at Charlie when Charlie was speaking. And I couldn't help but wonder if he was hoping for a Snickers bar. But it was gorgeous. I don't know how many of you saw him. He was huge, and he sat there for a good while, staring in the window. Then he turned and flew off very majestically. It was beautiful.
It's me again. I have a concern, but I've turned it into a joy. My husband has had health issues for the last 7, almost going on 8 years. He's now on hospice, but the joy is the care that the hospice has given him and me has been absolutely a joy. I can't say enough about the care that they've given him and me. And the aides, the volunteers, the nurses, the chaplain from the hospice here has visited us. So that is my joy, that I have them in my life now.
Great.
Hi, I'm Barbara Popka, and just wanted to report that Ed and I stopped by. We were supposed to pick Jim Lampke up to bring him here this morning, and Jim just was very, very weak, very exhausted. I think he told me that everything he's been through leading up to the service yesterday for Marge, now that it's over, I guess his body's just letting it, just crashing. So he felt badly that he couldn't get here. Hopefully, I set it up so he could watch it on Zoom, and if you're there, Jim, I love you, but just keep him in your thoughts and prayers, and he's supposed to be moving on Wednesday. Hopefully that will happen and he'll feel okay by then, so I just keep a prayer up for him.
Hi, I'm John. I was surprised by Joy the other evening. I was looking for something to watch on the TV, and I got to the Hilton Head station, and I saw one of our members being Clara Barton, and she was amazing. Oh my gosh, it was about a half an hour's worth of being Clara Barton, Rosemary Staples. So that was
I'm Marietta Kerr, and I wanted to thank everyone for the good wishes for my birthday. I really appreciate it. I've been a member here for 14 years, and this congregation has been my family. And I'm still looking back and trying to imagine how I managed to live for 9 decades, and it's just mind-boggling. And again, I appreciate everything this congregation has done for me.
Marietta is my role model. And I'm putting 2 stones in the cairn for those joys and concerns that are unspoken. Now we you join me in reading affirmation? Did you have one that you didn't get to say? Please come. I'm sorry.
My name is Greg Campworth. I've had great shoulder pain now for ever since my early 20s, both shoulders, and maybe you can find it in your hearts to say some prayers that I have less shoulder pain. This shoulder is slotted for shoulder replacement. I may look young, but hey, no. The doctor said that this one is slotted for shoulder replacement. So, no. Looks are deceiving. No, I may look young, but no. I have great shoulder pain. So, if you would find in your hearts to say some prayers, thank you.
Now will you join me in the affirmation number 436 in the back of your hymnal? We come to this time and this place to rediscover the wondrous gift of free religious community, to renew our faith in the holiness, goodness, and beauty of life, to reaffirm the way of the open mind and full heart, to rekindle the flame of memory and hope, and to reclaim the vision of an earth made fair, with all her people one.
Today's sermon may be seen as something of an extended definition. I want us to examine an ideology that used to be regarded as an extremist position, but which in recent years has been embraced as a badge of honor among an increasing number of our fellow citizens. In fact, a recent survey from the Public Religion Research Council reveals that nearly 1/3 of Americans now hold white Christian nationalist views. So, what is white Christian nationalism? It's the belief that America is a Christian nation, founded by and for white Christians, that our law should be based on Christian values, that God has called white Christians to exercise dominion over all areas of American society. Indeed, it's the belief that white Christians are the only true Americans. Now, this does not mean that the rest of us cannot be here. It just means we need to know our place. Now, this ideology has been around since the nation's founding, drawing from a metaphor from a 1630 sermon about Puritan evangelist John Winthrop, that America was intended by God to be a shining city on a hill. You remember that phrase, don't you? It was invoked by President Ronald Reagan during the 1980 presidential race. Some early Americans believed that God intended America to be a new promised land, where white European Christians could create a society that would be an example for the rest of the world. But the term Christian nationalism did not enter our vocabulary until the 1940s, thanks to a man named Gerald Lyman Kenneth Smith, a political organizer for Senator Huey Long. Smith was a fascist, anti-Semite, and anti-communist. In the early 40s, Smith started the Christian Nationalist Party, the America First Party, and an extremist monthly publication called The Cross and the Flag. Smith believed that communism was a Jewish plot and that communism used black people as their pawns to try to overthrow white Christian American civilization. Through his publication, which had a mailing list of over 3 million people, Smith peddled the myth that America was founded as a Christian nation and that non-Christians were second-class citizens that may be tolerated as kind of guests, as visitors, although his definition of Christian was quite narrow. It did not include Catholics and Mormons. White Christian nationalism picked up steam during the Cold War of the 1950s, when "one nation under God" was inserted into the Pledge of Allegiance, and "in God we trust" was adopted as the national motto to distinguish Christian America from godless communism. The movement picked up steam in the 60s thanks to a series of Supreme Court decisions which upheld the separation of church and state, such as the decision to ban school-sponsored prayer in public schools. Then came the feminism of the 70s, which upended the contention of right-wing Christians that women are subservient to men, both at home and in the public sphere. In the 1980s, white Christian nationalism capitalized on the rise of Jerry Falwell's moral majority, TV preacher Pat Robertson's Christian Coalition, and right-wing politicians. And in more recent years, as you're well aware, the movement has focused its rage on LGBTQ equality and abortion rights. So, what do white Christian nationalists believe? Well, we can get a good idea by taking a good look at our new Speaker of the House, Representative Mike Johnson of Louisiana. Now, this former attorney for two white Christian nationalist legal groups, Alliance Defending Freedom and First Liberty Institute, is second in line to the presidency. Regarding the separation of church and state, Johnson wrongly claims that Thomas Jefferson did not really support church-state separation. Speaking at a Baptist church, Johnson claimed that the founders broke away from England because they had read the Bible and wanted to create a nation based on, quote, "this revolutionary idea that we owe our allegiance to the King of Kings." In a 2016 interview, Johnson proclaimed, quote, "over the last 60 to 70 years, our generation has been convinced that there is a separation of church and state. Most people think that is part of the Constitution, but it is not," end quote. I hope everyone here knows how wrong that statement is. Johnson has promoted evangelical Christianity in public schools. He's advocated for a Bible course created by the National Council on Bible Curriculum in public schools. This course is heavily skewed toward evangelical Christianity, treats the Bible as an accurate record of history, and is a thinly veiled attempt to promote Christianity in our public schools. Johnson has told the media that requiring public schools to treat all religious traditions equally is, quote, "the height of political correctness." Johnson is a creationist who blames the teaching of evolution for our country's ills. In a sermon at a Shreveport church, Johnson stated, quote, "people say, how can a young person go into their schoolhouse and open fire on their classmates? It's because we've taught a couple of generations of Americans that there is no right and wrong, that it's about survival of the fittest, and that you evolved from primordial slime," end quote. Johnson believes that courthouses should be able to display religious symbols such as the Ten Commandments. In 2008, he defended the display of a portrait of Jesus in a Slidell, Louisiana courthouse. Johnson believes that houses of worship should be able to intervene in partisan elections. In 2017, He backed the repeal of a federal law that bars tax-exempt nonprofit groups, including houses of worship, from intervening in elections by endorsing or opposing candidates. We need to unshackle the voice of the church again, said Johnson. Johnson has a long record of attacking LGBTQ rights. In 2004, he proposed amending Louisiana's constitution to ban marriage equality, stating, quote, God loves every sinner, but we model true compassion when we retain pro-traditional marriage and are conscientiously opposed to all deviations from it. He called homosexuality, quote, an inherently unnatural and dangerous lifestyle that would lead to legalized pedophilia. I don't know what it is about right-wing Christians, but they are obsessed with pedophilia. Johnson has partnered with the Exodus International, a now defunct group that promoted conversion therapy. Remember that? Conversion therapy is a discredited practice that tells gay men and lesbians that they can change their sexual orientation by adopting fundamentalist Christianity. Johnson has long worked to make abortion illegal and curtail access to birth control. While at Alliance Defending Freedom, he called for the closure of an abortion clinic, and he challenged the Affordable Care Act's contraceptive coverage. As a member of the U.S. House, he has co-sponsored several bills that would ban abortion nationwide. To no one's surprise, white Christian nationalist groups are ecstatic over Johnson's elevation to the Speaker of the House. For example, the American Family Association has observed, quote, the House of Representatives have elected a solid Christian man as Speaker of the House in Mike Johnson. Many Americans prayed for a godly leader, and God has answered those prayers. As my friend Robert Jones recently wrote, Representative Mike Johnson is the embodiment of white Christian nationalism in a tailored suit. Now, we actually have an embodiment of white Christian nationalism much closer to home. South Carolina Representative Thomas Beach of Anderson County abuses the power of his office to proselytize his constituents through religious birthday cards. If you're a voter in his district on your birthday, you will receive a card from him which says, quote, another year of life upon this earth. I hope you've used it well. I do encourage you to dedicate your life to our Father in heaven. It was he who gave us life. It's up to us on what to do with it, and we will account for it. The world might be chaotic, broken, and crazy, but I have found a simple solution. Repent of your sins and place your faith in Jesus. Happy birthday, Representative Thomas Beach. Now, if this doesn't represent the government's promotion of a particular religion, I don't know what does. Beliefs have consequences. Beliefs lead to action. And in the case of white Christian nationalism, this perverted religious ideology has political consequences. For example, despite the fact that the Supreme Court ruled more than 40 years ago that displaying the Ten Commandments in public schools is unconstitutional because it represents the government's promotion of religion, the Texas legislature is proposing a bill that would require every public school classroom in Texas to display the Ten Commandments in the King James Version of the Bible. The sponsor of the bill, State Senator Phil King, says that such a display would recognize America's heritage as an official Christian nation. Also, the Texas legislature, you can always count on Texas, the Texas legislature is proposing a bill that will allow school districts to replace trained, certified school counselors with religious chaplains. Once again, such an act would be using the machinery of the state to impose religion on a captive audience of school children. In Oklahoma, the state charter school board has approved the creation of the nation's first religious public charter school. Despite the fact that St. Isidore Catholic Charter School will receive public funds, it will be allowed to deny admission and expel students who are LGBTQ and students who do not belong to the Catholic faith. In other words, taxpayers in Oklahoma will be funding a public school that can discriminate against students for religious reasons. Now, this is not only a clear violation of church-state separation, but it's a violation of the very idea of public schools being open to all children regardless of race, sexual orientation, gender identity, or religion. In West Virginia, students at Huntington High School were forced to attend a revival service hosted by evangelist Nick Walker of Nick Walker Ministries. Once they arrived, students were told to bow their heads, raise their hands, and were warned to follow Jesus or face eternal torment. The school district has agreed to pay nearly $175,000 in attorney's fees to settle a lawsuit brought by parents opposed to their children being taken to a religious service. In Kentucky, Kim Davis, a county clerk, refused to issue a marriage license to a gay couple, citing her conservative Christian religious beliefs. The couple sued, and now Ms. Davis must pay the couple $100,000. Yay. Here in South Carolina, Amy Madonna, mother of 3, applied to be a foster parent with Miracle Hill Ministries, the largest taxpayer-funded foster care agency in our state. Miracle Hill originally told Amy that her family would be a great fit to volunteer with children. But then the agency asked what church the Madonnas attended. When Amy told them the name of her Catholic church, Miracle Hill abruptly rejected her application because, quote, she is not a Christian. Despite the fact that the agency receives public funds to perform a public service, it will allow only evangelical Protestants to be foster parents. And I'm sad to report that a federal court has ruled that Miracle Hill has the right to discriminate. And as you know, white Christian nationalist groups in several states have succeeded in banning books they find offensive in public schools and public libraries. Almost all of the targeted books deal with LGBTQ or racial issues. In Florida, for example, teachers and librarians who run afoul of that state's banned books law could be charged with a 3rd-degree felony, which is punishable by a 5-year prison sentence and a $5,000 fine. The Washington Post found that a mere 11 people, now get this, a mere 11 people were responsible for the majority of the nearly 1,000 challenges lodged against books in public schools in 37 states. In one case, Cindy Martin, a parent in Forsyth County, Georgia, requested that 3 books be removed, among them a title about a gay hockey player. Martin urged school officials to, quote, remove all copies and burn it. She told the newspaper, it has no place in the school system. It really has no place in society. I'm a believer in Jesus Christ, and I feel he has put this passion in me to protect our children, end quote. And the Supreme Court dealt a major blow to LGBTQ equality non-discrimination laws and church-state separation with its recent ruling that certain businesses may refuse to serve LGBTQ clients if doing so would violate the owner's religious beliefs. The ruling stemmed from a case in which Lori Smith, the owner of a Colorado website design firm, said she would refuse to design a wedding website for same-sex couples because, quote, homosexuality contradicts biblical truth. Interestingly, no same-sex couple had tried to hire her firm, and yet the Supreme Court made its ruling anyway. The High Court's decision was upheld by its conservative bloc, Neil Gorsuch, John Roberts, Amy Coney Barrett, Samuel Alito, Clarence Thomas, and Brett Kavanaugh. And as the President appoints Supreme Court justices, elections do matter. Vote this November. Justice Sonia Sotomayor wrote the dissent, quote, today is a sad day in American constitutional law and in the lives of LGBTQ people. The Supreme Court of the United States declares that a particular business, though open to the public, has a constitutional right to refuse to serve members of our society. The court does so for the first time in its history. By issuing this new license to discriminate, the immediate symbolic effect of the decision is to mark gays and lesbians for second-class status. Beliefs have consequences. Let's get our facts straight and correct the myths perpetrated by white Christian nationalists. First of all, the United States was not founded as an officially Christian nation. If that had been the intent of our founders, the Constitution would say so front and center, but it does not. The U.S. Constitution is a secular document. It contains no mention of Christianity or Jesus Christ. In fact, the Constitution refers to religion only twice. In the First Amendment, which bars laws respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, and in Article 6, which prohibits religious tests for public office. Both of these provisions are evidence that this is not a Christian nation. It's a nation in which you are free to be a Christian. Also, the Constitution very definitely establishes the separation of church and state. In fact, until America's founders created the First Amendment, no nation had dared to put an official distance between religion and government. And this did not happen in a vacuum. Key founders such as Thomas Jefferson and James Madison were keen students of history and were well aware of the situation in Europe, where hundreds of years of church-state union led to violence, terror, torture, and war. The church-state separation provisions of the First Amendment were heavily influenced by the Virginia Statute for Religious Freedom. Introduced by Thomas Jefferson in 1776, the Virginia Statute did two things. It disestablished the Anglican Church in Virginia, and it guaranteed to everyone the right to worship as they saw fit. And Jefferson's friend and political ally, James Madison, who is called the father of the Constitution, took these two key principles and incorporated them into the First Amendment. The phrase, a wall of separation between church and state, comes from a letter that Jefferson wrote to a Baptist association in Danbury, Connecticut, while he was president. Now, believe it or not, back in those days, Baptists were staunch defenders of church-state separation. Agreeing with them, Jefferson wrote, quote, believing with you that religion is a matter which lies solely between man and his God, that he owes account to none other for his faith or his worship, that the legitimate powers of the government reach actions only and not opinions, I contemplate with sovereign reverence that act of the whole American people, which declared that the legislature should make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, thus building a wall of separation between church and state. This powerful metaphor has rung down through the ages. Because democracy is messy and doesn't always deliver the results that white Christian nationalists want, they have embraced the authoritarian turn in our American politics which we've witnessed in recent years. Because authoritarianism allows you to act without hearing the voices of others, authoritarianism is convenient for them because it's the only way they can get what they want. White Christian nationalists admire dictators like Vladimir Putin in Russia and wannabe dictators here at home. Make no mistake, their worldview is about power. Their sacred value is not the voice of the people. Their sacred value is enacting the will of God as they understand it, using the force of government. Despite their authoritarian, anti-democratic impulses, white Christian nationalists see themselves as patriots. But they are not. They are traitors to our democracy. Democracy requires you to listen to the voices of the people, because democracy is based on a secular faith, a faith affirmed by Unitarian Universalists, faith in the dignity and worth of every person, which demands liberty and justice for all, whatever one's race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, or lack thereof. Yes, democracy is messy. Yet I have to agree with Winston Churchill, who said, "No one pretends that democracy is perfect or all-wise. Indeed, it's been said that democracy is the worst form of government, except for all the others that have been tried." Amen.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. Just as you were bringing your message to a close, a table was being set up in the back, sign-up sheets for you to run for office here somewhere. Yeah. I'm going to sign it first. Take your hymnals in your hands, if you would please turn with me to hymn number 95, and if you're willing and able to stand, might we join together with There Is More Love.
Our closing words about Lawrence Ferling Hetty. Pity the nation whose people are sheep and whose shepherds mislead them. Pity the nation whose leaders are liars, whose sages are silenced, and whose bigots haunt the airwaves. Pity the nation that raises not his voice except to praise conquerors and acclaim the bully as hero, and aims to rule the world with force. Pity the nation that knows no other language but its own, and no other culture but its own. Pity the nation. Oh, pity the people who allow their rights to erode and their freedoms to be washed away. My country, tears of thee, sweet land of liberty.
I want to make sure all of you know that you're welcome to stay for the talk back. Those of you that are guests or visitors, you have found your way into a fabulous congregation of love and compassion and care and concern, and I would love to have you begin to meet them a little bit more during our talk back. And so if you would please stay, and we're looking very much forward to talking more to Dr. Jones about this message this morning. Thank you. If you would please.
We stand together to extinguish the chalice. While we extinguish this flame, we still carry in our hearts the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment until we are together again.
Thank you.